What's up, everybody? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back for episode 2 of the Get Innovated podcast. I am your host, Kristen Pate. I am Director of Technology, and I'm also the founder of Get Innovated Strategic Consulting, where I provide K-12 leaders with EdTech consulting services. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. That being said, I have a big announcement, a really big announcement, okay? And then I'll get into this episode. So, on this past Monday, I received some exciting news. So, I've been identified, tapped, referred, and recommended by my school leadership for a special task force. And this task force is going to be dedicated towards helping my school district. And if those of you don't know, I'm here in New Orleans, so NOLA Public Schools. It's going to be towards helping our school district create and standardize AI policies and guidelines for the district. So I'm super excited to have a seat at that table and to be able to interact with other thought leaders in the ed tech space and be able to truly make change. So you all may know already, but I've already created and co-created the AI policy that we're currently using at the school where I work. But to be able to do this at the district level is a really exciting and amazing opportunity. So make sure before we get into the topic, you go ahead on and share this podcast out. Make sure you already subscribe to the podcast as well, so you don't miss any other weekly episodes when they're posted. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. So tonight's topic is about the death of education and whether or not reactive leadership is really what's causing the problem, right? Told y'all last time, and I'm gonna tell y'all again, I'm a straight no chaser type of person. I don't come on the podcast with a lot of fluff and a lot of jargon. I don't talk techie per se. I come here, I give it to you straight no chaser, tell you what my experience is. And for those of you who don't know, I've been in education since 2010. I was a classroom teacher for 13 years, and I have been the director of technology for the past 7 years. This school year is my 8th year in this role, because this is a critical time. We're at a critical crossroads in education, and technology is kind of, at a tipping point. So we're going to dig into it tonight. So like I said, tonight's topic is all about reactive leadership and whether or not that is the death of education, as we know it. Let's say that the death of education, K-12, EdTech education as we know it. All right. So most of the schools that I deal with in my experience has been charter schools, and that's because, of course, if you know anything about the school system here in New Orleans, we're almost 100% charter when it comes to public schools. We don't have very many direct run schools, so NOLA PS or New Orleans Public Schools doesn't directly run schools anymore. They may have one or two schools that they're directly running at this point, but we're all charter here. And so most of the time that means a couple of things. A lot of the decisions that are being made at the schools are being made in-house. There's not a school board, there's not a superintendent that's kind of, giving out orders. The decisions are being made right there in the building. So the CEO is right there in the room and you're having conversations with them, and they are the ones who are deciding what to do. And sometimes they can be reactionary. And I've experienced it myself where I've gone with my expertise. Now, y'all, told you how long I've been doing this. And I've given my recommendation, I've given my suggestions for changes and things to do, and there was pushback. And then a few months down the road, they decided to go ahead on and move forward with some of the things and initiatives that I was talking about. But it happens all the time, right? Because there is a real fear. There is a real fear that leaders have. And I get it. Being a leader in whatever industry you're in it's a lot, right? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, as they say. It's a lot to kind of consider, to think about, because there's so many stakeholders, right? There's so many people you're responsible for. Whatever decision your school leader is making, the principal or the CEO or whatever title they have, whatever that decision is bound to affect and impact not just a handful of people, but hundreds, potentially thousands of people, including staff, students, and parents, and maybe even trickle over into the community, depending on the decision. So it's understandable that, you know, making these decisions, you have to be very, very sure. But sometimes trying to be very, very sure about things, and this is just in life sometimes, can cause us to be stagnant, can cause us to be stuck, can cause us to be reactionary when we could have been proactive and kind of getting ahead of the game. But right now, in schools, I'm telling you from my experience, I'm not telling you something that, I'm making up on my own. I've been doing this for a long time. We are at a tipping point when it comes to ed tech. And one of those reasons is obviously because of the introduction of artificial intelligence, aka AI, aka I hate this, right? Because so many people can't stand it. But a lot of that is rooted in the fear for your job, right? But let's dive in. So the whole premise of this topic and the whole reason why I'm kind of being dramatic about it, right, is because of the simple fact that technology is one of those things that's ever evolving. So if you don't get ahead of it, you can quickly find yourself at the back of the line. And I mean that. Like we see it all the time. There's something new features, new apps, new programs, new software, new everything rolling out, updates, changes. If you are in business or you have you work in a school system, you know that these apps are always changing. There's always something new happening. And because of that, because of how rapidly technology evolves, it evolves. If you are in a leadership position in the school system, in K-12 education, and you are not putting technology top of mind so you can stay ahead of the game, so your staff can stay ahead of the game, so your students can be prepared for the jobs and opportunities of the future, you are doing yourself a disservice. All right. So again, the death of education is not due to a lack of stuff. Okay. We got stuff, right? We have tons and tons of stuff. COVID did one thing well, and that was it provided an opportunity for underserved, underfunded schools in urban and rural areas to finally get access to the technology tools that the big fancy suburban school, 10, 20 miles away was getting. It finally kind of leveled out the playing field when it came to the access to technology. It kind of made it, we got a kind of a clean slate. And so for that, we're grateful in the tech world, right? For me, I was like, thank you. Thank you for all the free stuff. Yes, I will take it. But the ESSER funds, which is the funding source that provided for all of that, has run out. We're going to have to learn to work within the parameters of what we have available to us now. And the problem is because COVID caused such a rapid influx of gadgeting, right? We got so equipped. It's like literally someone taking you from your little studio apartment and throwing you into a mansion. And now you got to try to figure out like how does all of this work? Because I've never had this much. It was literally like a whirlwind, like an overnight type of thing for a lot of schools. What we lacked in gadgets, we now lack in training. We're not in a state of emergency when it comes to access anymore. We have it. It's at our disposal and our fingertips. We're 1-to-1, sometimes 1-to-2, like I mean 2-to-1, depending on how much resources we have. We have the tools, right? My campus, it took a little while, but we finally underwent a full interactive board upgrade the summer before last, so summer 2024. We did a full on overhaul of our interactive smart panels at one of my campuses. And that's also been, a game changer for us. So we're not short on the tools. We have the tools, but we're not meeting the goal. We're not getting to that next level. We're not moving the needle forward because now we're at a place where we lack the training, where staff lacks the training. And it's not their fault. A lot of it is just due to time constraints. Like, let's be honest. Teachers, educators, anybody that works in education knows there's just not really enough hours in the day to successfully navigate all of the things that we have to do. I know some people look from the outside in and assume that, Well, you just, you're playing your lessons, you're going there, you teach, you grade some papers, the end. But they're not considering the meetings that we have to be in, and the professional development that we have to get in, the conversations that we have to have with parents about their students' behavior or their academic progress, or the students that we serve that have special needs that need special attention and require much more hands on, or the hours we stay after school to tutor and help kids who are falling behind, or the hours we arrive early so we can get the day set up so that we're not struggling through the day and we can make those copies so there's not a line at the copy machine when we come. They're not considering all of those things. So then when you throw technology in the mix and then you try to make sure they're at least aware of how to use the things, it kind of causes a little bit of a conundrum and a little bit of a bottleneck. And because some leaders are kind of stuck in their mindset, they're kind of taking a wait and see, or we'll kind of like, see how people feel. And if we really need to have that training, or if we really need to do this thing, what we're actually now seeing is that a lot of our kids, a lot of our staff are falling behind when it comes to the expectations around technology, right? Even some of our staff are not tech savvy enough for the next wave of what's coming. And just mark my words. I mean, I know you already see the what they say, the writings on the wall. I know you already see the writing on the wall. So this next wave and how technology is evolving and transforming how we do everything, you have to know that it's going to have a profound impact on how we teach and how our kids are learning. And another issue that kind of impacts the leaders and makes them more reactionary is their own lack of know-how. Now, I did a little research because I was curious. And the average age of a school leader, we're talking like a principal, is like 49. And I wouldn't consider that to be old. As a woman in my 40s, I wouldn't consider that to be old. But when we think about the last time that person themselves was a student, or the last time that person was in the classroom, then we might be looking at a large gap in time, right? Now, I know it's been 20 plus years, 26 this year, I think. Yep, since I was in high school. And I just told you all, I've taught for 13 years, but the last time I had a class of students that I was in charge of was in 2022. So I'm hitting about a 4-year gap in time as far as what it's like on the day to day being inside of a classroom and how the gadgets impact my day. How do I use these tools to help my students, to help me, etc.? Because I'm not interacting with those things every single day. And so a lot of leaders are in a similar position. You're the principal. You don't teach classes typically. You're not interacting with kids via Google Classroom. You're not planning lessons. And so some of that can impact how they react. They can be much slower to react because their mindset is still kind of stuck. And listen, I'm not saying this stuff to tell, for you to think that I'm saying you have a bad leader, but their mindset and their idea about what's happening or should or could be happening in the classroom might be still rooted in some old ways, right? Some old school methodology, some old school pedagogy. And things have changed dramatically. A detachment can lead to issues when it comes to ed tech and being strategic and planning and budgeting for ed tech. And anytime you put tech on the end of something or in somewhere in a sentence, people automatically start to get afraid of how much it's going to cost. I don't know about y'all, but I just, in my mind, technology is expensive. I don't, and I'm a tech person. I'm a technologist, right? I'm a tech enthusiast. I love tech. But in my mind, when I think about tech, right? Think about the peripherals, the things, the physical things. Immediately my mind goes, that's expensive. Because it's tech, we have this mindset that tech costs a lot of money, right? And let's be honest, sometimes it does. I mean, those interactive panels that are in some of these classrooms, if they got them several years ago, those things used to be extremely expensive. I mean, at one point in time, you could spend easily $5,000 on a smart panel. Now, granted, because technology has evolved and They figured out how to do things, smarter and better. They've been able to drive the price down and increase the features. But at the same token, this is not the classroom that your school leader was in 10, 15 years ago when he or she was teaching kids. It's a whole new ball game in there. And when you go and press and you say, we need, sometimes you just sound like you're complaining. So I'm here to kind of be a bridge, if you will, but I am an educator at my core. And I take that and hold that as a unique advantage that I have in this EdTech space is that I've been in the classroom. So when I share my knowledge and I share my insights, I'm not sharing it from, you know, this lens of I'm a techie. No, I'm an educator first. And so I'm very conscious, I'm very aware. I try to be, as conscious of that as possible when I'm making decisions. And how is what I'm going to do impacting my teachers? How is this going to impact my students? Yes, it may make my life or my job easier, but what is the impact on them? That's how I approach a lot of things. But a lot of times, like I said, school leaders are approaching things from, a different perspective. They've been out of the classroom a long time, and then they're also responsible for managing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of funds and making sure that every single child gets what they need. And sometimes some decisions that are made are beyond their control. And so while you may feel frustrated with your leadership, a lot of times it's because there's other things that are happening that we're not aware of. And so we have to figure out how to have a conversation with one another, how to come to the table together as stakeholders and make these sound decisions that are not rooted in wait and see, or it wasn't like that when I was in the classroom, so why does it need to be like that now? We have to have some conversations. And that's what my podcast is really all about, having those conversations. That's what my business is about. It's about saying, okay, we got the stuff, we've got the gizmos and the gadgets. Let's have a conversation about how to do this thing better. How do we get more intentional about what we're doing? How do we make sure that that investment you made in that smart board, that interactive panel, is not just being used as a glorified projector screen? How do we make sure our teachers, how do we invest in making sure our teachers are well trained for the future as we are trying to prepare our students? Because how do you expect teachers who haven't been given the training to prepare students for a future that the teacher themselves is not even equipped to manage or handle? I could pause right there and let you marinate on that. Because if we're not equipping our teachers with the skills, the soft skills that they need to be able to use the technology, to be an example, to be a role model for them, right? They have to be able to demonstrate this stuff to the kids. How are we going to expect them to teach the kids about it if they themselves can't use it or don't know how? And so ultimately what happens is being a reactive leader, trying to hold on to the purse string so tight and not investing and not recognizing that an investment usually requires a one-time investment, and then there's a ROI, which is the return on said investment. How do we get those leaders to let go a little bit so the Miss Walkers of the world, that teacher who, works hard, is dedicated to her profession, but is maybe under leadership that isn't quite there yet. That isn't, and not for the lack of experience, they just have so many other things on their plate and so many other factors that they're trying to consider that is causing paralysis for them. So the Miss Walkers of the world are out here trying to do the best they can. They're showing up. They're staying up late. They're getting there early. They're doing all the things. But for Christ's sakes, if they could just have a little help or support or training on how to use the computer better, or the how to use the smart board better, it could and probably would not only improve things for Miss Walker and her time, reclaiming some of her time and her not being so frustrated and annoyed every day when she comes to work, but it will probably also improve things and outcomes for her students. So this all goes hand in hand. That's the wonderful thing. It's kind of like the two-edged sword of the education space, that these sorts of things go hand in hand. That when we make strategic planning and budgeting and investments into ed tech, into making sure that we are getting the most bang for our buck. I'm not the consultant that's here to tell you spend all your money on the newest, best, fanciest gizmos and gadgets, because that's what's going to move the needle forward. I'm the one that says, okay, show me what you got and let's make a plan for what we can do with that. Because a lot of times we have the what we need. Like I told you before at the beginning of this podcast, we have the gadgets. We just need the preparation. We need the training. We need the support. We need people in the building who know how to use the tools to train people, to to show them how this can make your life easier, to make technology feel more integrated and not as another thing that's on their plate. Because along with the Miss Walkers who are tired and exhausted, you're going to have the other teachers who are just going to say, I don't care what you're saying. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I'm going to figure out how to do this on my own. They're going to go rogue on you. And that might, while that may benefit the students that they interact with, some of that rogue behavior may have good outcomes for their students. Wouldn't you want that for all of them? Wouldn't you want all of your kids to have an experience or be engaged in their learning the same way that the rogue teachers kids are? But because you're the leader and you have, you're moving in a state of fear or uncertainty or reactionary, you're taking a reactionary approach to everything. This is where we are. So now we have a hodgepodge. Now we have a lot of different things happening. We have some people who are knocking it out of the park with tech and some people who are still over here on a diddle machine. Okay, maybe not the diddle, but you know what I'm saying. They're the ones still making packets. They just insist on letting the Chromebook cart sit in the corner and collect dust. They only breaking it out when it's state testing time. Like they're just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not trying to figure it out. I don't have time. So we're gonna have to start to prioritize this though, because like I said, you see how fast this ball is rolling? Are you paying attention? Are your eyes open? The ball is rolling and it's rolling fast. And it's creating a larger and larger and larger and larger and larger gap between our students, an equity gap. We're always fighting against equity. That's like one of the never ending battle in education spaces. How do we make this right, fair, equal for all students? But because of how quickly technology is moving, it's running past us. Like at one point in time, we were kind of a little bit ahead of the game, but now it has caught up and it's either right on pace with us in some instances, depending on how your school leadership has been moving over these last few years, or it is literally overtaking us. And I mean, it's leaving us in the dust, it's in the smoke. Okay. That brings me to my next point, which is kind of piggybacking off of what I said about the rogue student, the rogue teacher, and the equity gap, and how that ultimately creates this, you know, this false positive environment. You heard me kind of touch on it a bit in the introduction episode to the podcast, but it really does create this false positive fallacy, as I like to call it, where it appears like things are going a certain way, but we're not taking into account who has access and who doesn't, who knows how and who doesn't. Yes, Miss Walker and Miss Rogue teacher are knocking it out of the park, but that's because they know how to do certain things that the other teachers don't know how to do. And whether that's because they've self-taught themselves and they just say, yes, listen, if the school won't invest in me, I'll invest in me. And then of course there's the kids who are using the tools correctly, because not everybody's using it to cheat. Come on. Nope, everybody's not using Google to cheat. Everybody's not using AI to cheat. But there are going to be the students who are going to be doing the right thing, and and they're going to start to see a change in their learning and their development and their understanding and the work that they produce. While students who definitely could benefit from that are not going to be able to see that same thing. So, how do we do this? How do we go from proactive to from reactive to proactive? How do we go from evasive, dodging it, not right now. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. To being more in tune with what's actually happening, because you can't keep dodging change. Eventually, you're going to have to face it and face it head on. So my strategy: be intentional. Come with the vision. Come with the mission. Come with the goal. We know this thing is happening. We know it's coming. We can't fight it. Is going. It is what it is. How do we take advantage of it and use it so that it can improve academic outcomes for our students? How do we take it and improve work-life balance and morale for our teachers? How do we take it? We got to take it. The change is coming. We can't avoid it. It's happening now. How do we take it and really truly start to move the needle forward so that we're not getting left behind, but we're at least keeping pace? Can we at least do that? Can we at least make that the goal? That while it may not, we may not get overtaken, but let's at least try to keep pace. Let's give it a run for its money. And we're not so far behind that we've failed our kids who are graduating from our schools and going into the workforce, going off to college, going into the military, lacking in skill sets that are going to be a requirement. Listen to me, a requirement for the jobs of the future. So as a leader, this is now I'm gonna shift here and we're gonna get ready to close it out. I'm gonna shift here and talk straight to my school leaders, my CEOs, my executive directors, my principals and APs, my master teachers, my academic admin. I don't care what your title is, that's irrelevant to me. I'm talking to my academic admin. Because even if I'm talking to you and you're like, I'm not the decision maker, I don't make the final, I don't have the final say. You can take what you're hearing tonight and bring it back to the table because you sit at the table with them. Because remember what I told you, the person's in the building and the ladder stops in the building. Listen to me. Strategy. Intentional strategy is the way. Going forward, this is how we approach technology. This is how we approach EdTech in the K-12 space. This is how we truly move the needle forward. We're not buying another Chromebook. We don't need it. We don't need another interactive smart panel right now. Mm-mm. We need an intentional strategy. And that's what I do. That's what I help you create in my business. That's what I help you create. It's called getting an innovative strategic consultant for a reason, because it's all about strategy. Let's create the plan. Let's build a 3 to 5 year roadmap. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see what that could look like. Let's see how we could transform what's happening in our school buildings in the next 3 to 5 years if we look at tech as something that is to be infused and embedded and weaved in and not added on top of. We have to shift mindsets as leaders. If you are a school leader, you've got to be an open-minded school leader. You are not the smartest person in the room. You don't know everything that there is to know about education. I don't. I know what I know. You know what you know. So we have to be willing to come to the table, though, get in the room with each other and have that conversation. I have to listen to you and your concerns as the leader about budgets, about impact on stakeholders. And then you have to listen to me as the ed tech leader and share my insights on how we can use the tools that we have to help you with that vision, help you with the things that you just mentioned. Let's do this together. But you got to be open-minded about it. Third, You've got to let go of the fear. You got to. You have to stop being reactionary. You've got to start taking a more proactive approach. Fear, fear based reactions will kill education as we know it, will be the death of whatever mission that you had, whatever goals you wanted to achieve, whatever academic outcomes you wanted to produce. Fear will stop it dead in its tracks. One of the things that I say, and you'll see it on my website as well, technology is the tool, but education is the mission. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight. I really appreciate you. I went a little bit longer than I planned to, but I'm so glad that I got the chance to talk with you on tonight and share with you. If you are in need of support, or you just need to kind of start to prioritize EdTech in your school, and you're thinking to yourself, well, where do I even start? First and foremost, you can go to my website. Schedule yourself a free strategy audit. Let's discuss it. Let's get together. Let me hear what you have to say. Let's see how we can partner together to make that happen. Go to www.wegetinnovated.com and get your free strategy session today. I appreciate you all so very much. Getting ready to get up out of here. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.